I don't want to harp too much on this whole Crowder, Ben Shapiro thing, this Daily Wire thing.
No, yeah.
But it is also important to keep the flame alive, because the more...
The tomb of the unknown soldier.
Listen, the more that these guys fight, I honestly think the better for the country.
Yeah, there's no light without heat.
And just dropping in all these aphorisms. And so this is important. Listen, I want to make it clear. This is a disclaimer. Candace Owens is a horrible person, and
just a mercenary.
She's incredibly mercenary, and to that extent, there's some value in the moments where, but she's a horrible person, and this is not one of those things where I'm platforming someone I disagree with all the time. It is, I want to encourage this stuff to get out there to provoke Steven Crowder, who's also a horrible person.
Can I just say on that note, because I don't want to take credit for it, but I was the person who compared his contract to basketball player contracts. The very first day that we knew the number amount, and Crowder is saying these people are comparing it to basketball. I hope we're responsible for that.
Look, we know that Steven Crowder monitored this show. At the very least, the first the first day that we were that Ethan was supposed to debate him, and the second day.
Yep.
We know for a fact he did. He admitted it. It's hard to believe that he just started monitoring the show on that first Monday. I mean, he must have been aware of stuff prior to that. Even though he said, like, I have no idea who he is, which was sort of bizarre. I mean, I got news for you. Any show that we monitor, our audience is going to know who they are because we're going to play it. Anyways, here is Candace Owens. And remember, she's got some dirt on Crowder that she's saving, but Crowder's probably too meek of a man to continue this fight. And he's just going to crawl back into his spider hole, but we'll see. Here is Candace Owens with more charges against Steven Crowder. I hope he will address them because it's a little cucky, but go ahead.
All right, guys, we should cover, obviously, people have been following the back and forth between the Daily Wire and Steven Crowder, who launched this movement, if you want to call it that, Stop a Big Con, after he received a $50 million, not contract, but a term sheet, essentially a conversation starter from the Daily Wire, and then kind of came back and said, well, I don't think $50 million is enough. $120 million would be better. Daily Wire said, we're not going to play ball for $120 million. And Steven Crowder then took a couple of months to gather his thoughts, then decided to call our CEO, Jeremy Boring, and to record him, to take him out of context, and to release all of this onto the internet and said, oh, actually, I was never going to take this contract. I think that they're big cons because they're colluding somehow with big tech because we're on YouTube, just like he's on YouTube, but Daily Wire is not demonetized, and he is. You know the whole back forth. We don't need to get into it. Yesterday, he went on to Tim Pool. He heavily advertised his appearance and said, I'm going to be on tonight. I'm going to answer all the questions. What actually happened was he answered none of the questions.
I agree.
He dodged a lot of the questions. And Tim Pool, who I like very much, did not push back on this. Horrible. And that was very much the consensus in the comments, and the consensus on Twitter was, why didn't you ask him about his own employee contracts? He soured a lot of relationships with his former employees, Sven the computer, not gay Jared. No questions were asked about that throughout the entire interview.
I mean, listen, I agree that Tim Pool did not ask any of the hard questions. It was clearly a softball interview. It was clearly Tim Pool is aligning himself against the Daily Wire. It's disgusting because I think a lot of people feel that Tim Pool is a fair arbiter and he tries to look at these things fairly, but it's quite clear that because Tim Pool is independent, supposedly, he's sort of tacitly attacking the Daily Wire. When you don't ask hard questions of somebody coming on attacking the Daily Wire, it's quite clear that Tim Pool is also attacking the Daily Wire.
You're a vehicle for an attack on the Daily Wire.
Candace Owens, obviously, she likes Tim Pool. She's wrong about that. You shouldn't like Tim Pool. She shouldn't. Anyone shouldn't. But I also think that Tim Pool should not like Candace Owens. I think nobody should like Candace Owens. So it's really interesting here. There's, but so far her recap was accurate. That's just factual. And the lack of questions that Tim Pool offered, I'm really surprised by that because I thought Tim was would get to the bottom of this.
He's such a good journalist. I mean,
he really, not only did he not get to the bottom, he almost put a false bottom on it. I was really surprised by that. I really take him back. His journalism.
Expected more of his journalism.
Yeah, really rusty, weird. But anyways, let's hear what else Candace Owens has to say.
On Twitter was, why didn't you ask him about his own employee contracts? He soured a lot of relationships with his former employees, Sven the computer, not gay Jared. No questions were asked about that throughout this entire interview.
True.
About whether or not he was holding them, and they were not allowed to speak out on why those relationships that he's had with his own employees have soured, or why none of his employees are speaking up on his behalf. It's kind of an interesting contrast that you have people on the Daily Wire that are upset, understandably, of how have been portrayed by somebody who alleges he was a great friend of Jeremy Boring and Ben Shapiro. But you don't see this on the side of Steven Crowder. And
pause it. I think there's some truth to this too. And I will say this. Every one of the employees here, I think, and you guys can speak up if I'm in any way putting, misquoting you or mischaracterizing your sentiments. But you all think that Crowder's wrong in this, and you also think that Daily Wire's wrong in this, right? And Candace Owens, speak up. I'm not going to, whatever. You have your own opinions.
Well, I think Crowder should hold out for as much as he's worth as a worker and should stand up to these corporate folks that want to censor him. So keep fighting, dig in your heels, and, prepare for the long fight.
That's what we like around here on the Majority Report. We have a difference of opinion. I think that he should definitely be, attacking more of these coercive contracts in employment situations. Yep. I think that's important. But at the same time, I also think Crowder, not good. And so.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He should be agitating with these contract negotiations and continuing to leak them, please.
Yeah.
There should be more leaks on both sides. All of it should be released.
And he's wrong to make it about censorship and about the worker power. But anyway, go ahead.
A lot of relationships, not just the Daily Wire, all across the board, speak to any conservative company, big or small. They don't like to work with him. And he has been very nasty to people behind the scenes. I'm just telling you what I know. You can fact check me in your own capacity. Now, two things that he said during this interview. He first tried to assert, and I want to point to this because this was really so crucial to me, was that if he received this term sheet and he was just so outraged by the terms and it was completely a non-starter, why did he come back to the Daily Wire with a $120 million offer? And what you'll see is that he says, we never did that. And then he very quickly says, maybe my agent or manager did do that. And then changes the subject very quickly.
Pause it. Listen, I want to make it clear, Candace Owens probably watches this because we did that yesterday.
Yeah, we dwelled on that moment.
Yep. And what time does she do her show?
Good question.
Right after we do ours?
Yeah,
let me
check the time code.
We basically, here's the thing. These guys never, ever have to do any critical thinking on their show.
Media Matters posted this at 5:16 p.m. Eastern, so
Here's the bottom line. These shows never have to do any critical thinking. And so there's probably every reason to believe they're watching us, getting their ideas, and we're feeding it back. So that's why we do this, so that they have, content and points to make. But that's exactly what we said yesterday. But good.
Maybe my agent did do that is essentially you saying, yeah, that happened. We countered. Take a listen to Steven Crowder.
There's a clip
there
we
was
played.
no counter offer because I'm seeing a lot of you guys say
there was the agent. I think my agent. The first they sent this term sheet. The agent said, "Well, if you're talking about 100% ownership, by the way, in perpetuity, forever, meaning, and it's a 6-year contract with no option to negotiate.
He's just
2 years. 6 years,
galloping away now.
Locked in at that rate. And again, right? How do you penalize someone for money that they don't make? They're not going to lose money on you being demonetized. Now, I get that I'm a special situation, but they said this is demanded of everybody.
So there you go. It's no, absolutely. I think my agent maybe, again, it was about whether or not it was going to be 6 years. Pretty obvious, should be very obvious to every single person that essentially what he's saying is, well, maybe my agent, yes, your agent got back and said $120 million.
At least she could do is at least do a better impression of me. She's taken all my lines, but that's all right. Go ahead, continue. That's okay.
And you knew that this was taking place. And I don't even, like I said, I'm past anger with the situation. I do feel bad for him because I know more what's going on in the background.
I'm actually into full-on joy.
I don't think I was ever in anger with this.
I've been in joy for a long time. I've been in joy.
Into this.
I was just saying, she's past anger. I've been in joy this whole time. Like I've vacillated, to be fair, I've vacillated between joy and total elation. So, but it's both. Sometimes I'm elated. Sometimes I'm just joyful. All right, continue.
Was a starting conversation. You knew that this was taking place. And I don't even, like I said, I'm past anger with the situation. I do feel bad for him because I know more of what's going on in the background. And I do believe that this is a man that is spiraling. But it's so important that we inject truth into this. And you cannot say that you were so offended by a contract, so offended, so mortally wounded by the concept of a contract that your agent, as if you guys don't speak, went back and said, okay, 120 million. And then that, you're right. After that, the Daily Wire never came back with any other term sheet. It was never a contract whatsoever. And then the second thing, which I thought was borderline delusional, was him likening himself to James O'Keefe when people are rightfully outraged that irrespective of what you thought about this term sheet, you would record your friend and then release contents of the conversation chopped up so people can't discern the context whatsoever. Here's what he had to say about that.
If you had the ability, if someone's going out saying, hey,
I don't even need to hear this part anymore because I disagree with that. I would record every one of these vultures and vipers.
Yeah, we don't think much of James O'Keefe to get mad at him being invoked.
No, there you go. But listen, I honestly, Candace, if you're watching this, I think you need to be more explicit on what's going on here. I think you. Let's go to where she rejects the O'Keefe comparison. Let's just do that.
And speaking to individuals and executives, trying to figure out whether they are intentionally harming individuals, whether or not they are intentionally poisoning individuals, whether or not they are intentionally censoring individuals like they are doing over at Twitter, whether or not they are targeting our freedoms, our constitutional freedoms, like the freedom of speech. Okay, that is such serious, important work. I am one of James O'Keefe's biggest cheerleaders and supporters because I have watched him from the beginning, how hard and the effort that he has made to build what he has.
I'm stupid.
And to align yourself, to pretend that there is a manner or any path for you to align yourself with his work in terms of what you did makes it sound like James O'Keefe is so small and so petty. And
Pause it. Yeah, I will agree with that. He is small and petty. There's no doubt about that. So I guess that one, I think Crowder wins on that chord.
They think of James O'Keefe like Robert Caro or something.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Like Daniel Ellsberg.
Yeah.
Be deeply offended that you put yourself in his same category. The truth, and I think that the internet was able to see this, which is why it is not worth us saying anything more, in my opinion. I don't know what the Daily Wire is going to say about it further.
Oh,
but
wait
the reason
a
why
second.
this doesn't really matter is I think that people are really seeing just how nasty what you did was. And I think that I would hope that you would come to terms with the fact that you owe everybody an apology, that this was never necessary, that you can start whatever company you want. You don't get to step in like a socialist, and it is socialist-like. These are the demands that you hear, and people are trying to establish a union when the Amazon workers have walked out because they have decided that they are worth more, that they should have 3-hour lunch breaks. They've gotten their contract from Amazon, and they realize that their lunch breaks are only 1 hour, and that they're required to show up to work, and they think they should be able to work from home for 3 days a week post-COVID, and they walk out, and they want to stage a union. And this is the big con. It's Amazon. No, this is the free markets. And so to Tim Pool, what I would say, and I like Tim Pool, and I think that he is
Hold on, we got to
always
stop
very...
that. Well, no, what that was is I honestly think I'm starting to get the feeling that she watched our critique and she knows, she heard my critique of Crowder's original thing, which is he is acknowledging that you can get involved in a worker-employer relationship, worker management, that is exploitive towards workers, and he is complaining about that. He is complaining about a tenet of capitalism that he has, up until this point, denied even exists. Yep. That it's impossible. And she's pointing out, she is maintaining the pure exploitive capitalist position that if you're an Amazon worker, you have to take what you're given or piss off. That you have no rights as a worker, that it doesn't matter that you don't have food to eat or money for rent.
Did Chris Smalls, was that about having 3-hour lunch breaks? Or was that about
she's
COVID
got to
safety?
lie.
Right,
She's got to lie and exaggerate what the asks are.
Right.
I understand that. She's got to lie and exaggerate. But her point is they have no right to ask anything of Amazon.
Yep.
They will get what Amazon gives them, and they will like it. and you will get what the Daily Wire gives you, and you will like it, or you piss off. But Crowder reminds them that, look, there's a dynamic here, and she's right. It is, I wouldn't say it's socialism. That goes a little too far, but it is acknowledging that within the marketplace, there is coercion. It's
anti-capitalism, it's not socialism.
It's certainly a critique of capitalism, that there is such a thing as economic coercion, and that those management who holds the power can be economically coercive and exploitive of the workers. Crowder's right about that. And she just has no problem with it. She's sort of...
It's so revealing that how she has to lie about that, though. They want 3-hour work breaks to work from home.
Right,
please.
exactly. Right, exactly. She has to lie about the ask so that people don't get activated in the way that they got activated from Crowder. But I'm sorry. She got that critique from me because she didn't do it until I did that critique.
Right.
I'm not going to do all your work for you, Candace.
You're exploiting
Not
us,
for free,
Candace.
but go ahead.
Just how nasty what you did was, and I think that I would hope that you would come to terms with the fact that you owe everybody an apology, that this was never necessary, that you can start whatever company you want. You don't get to step in like a socialist, and it is socialist-like. These are the demands that you hear, and people are trying to establish a union. When the Amazon workers have walked out because they have decided that they are worth more, that they should have 3-hour lunch breaks. They've gotten their contract from Amazon, and they realize that their lunch breaks are only 1 hour, and that they're required to show up to work, and they think they should be able to work from home for 3 days a week post-COVID, and they walk out and they want to stage a union. And this is the big con. It's Amazon. No, this is the free markets. And so to Tim Pool, what I would say, and I like Tim Pool, and I think that he is always very kind to all of his guests that he has on his show. But when he says that he doesn't think $50 million is enough, I would like to say that the free markets will answer that question. Right? It doesn't look like anybody's come to him with an offer that's bigger. So you can feel however you feel on the inside. You can calculate your own self-worth.
Oh, facts don't care about your feelings. Yeah.
That's an interesting point because, what I said about Crowder needs to stand up for his whole worth, I agree with that, but I also think Crowder might have a not great understanding of what his worth is because he's been subsidized by right-wing billionaires his entire life.
That's true, too. That's right. He doesn't realize that from a market standpoint, he's been getting an ideological bonus from all his billionaires. But I also think that Crowder could make this point easier if he would just release what his operating expenses are. I mean, that's the big argument he's making, right? That he and Poole are making is like, everybody thinks that you can just slap this stuff up there, but you can make it easy. I mean, just tell us, is your operating expenses $11.5 million? I mean, how much? Just announce the number. The numbers are out there now. Why don't you just be clear on it? You're the ones complaining about how much money you're making. Well, I mean, let's put in. We can't assess any of this unless they be more clear with us. And I'm surprised.
Steven's the one talking about transparency.
I'm surprised Tim didn't do it. But of course, Tim doesn't want to do that either because then he's got to put it out there.
Yeah, it's a milquetoast fence sitter, Tim Pool, playing both sides of the fence here once again.
Real shame.
Transparency, Steven.
Is that it?
We can finish it off if you want, just the last bit of it.
They can tell me that I am worth $100 million. But if I go into a meeting and they say you're not worth $100 million, and I go into the next meeting and they don't offer me $100 million, and the third meeting and they don't offer me $100 million, it might be time for me to realize that maybe I'm not worth $100 million. That is the beauty of that. That is the symphony of the free markets. And I can't believe that I have to explain this to people that are conservatives that say that they are fighting for the future of this country. We are capitalists. We believe in the free markets. We believe in the right for a company to look at you and say, sorry, it's not for me. We believe in the right of an employee to look at a contract, to sign a contract and say, yes, this is for me, or to simply walk away and say, you know what, I have such better ideas. I can go start my own company. Or you know what, I know my own worth and I know that the next guy is going to offer me something bigger. And if you don't believe in that and your manner is that you're going to walk outside of those negotiations and throw a temper tantrum and a parade for yourself, and cry and try to unionize, then you know what? I don't know if this country really is free. That's not a message to Crowder. That's to any person who has that mentality that boo-hoo-hoo, pay me what I think I'm worth in my own head. It doesn't really work like that. So that truly, I hope, is all that I'm going to say about that.
All right. Let me just finish by saying I hope that's not the case. I mean, she has information that I think is crucial for all of us to know.
That would clarify a lot, because I think a lot in the people that are in both the Daily Wire audience and the Crowder audience are really polarized on this and don't know which way to go. And if Candace Owens is holding on to information that can make that decision a little bit easier, I think it behooves her.
Hey, listen.
With it.
She's a journalist. Yep. Why is she holding back this information? She herself has said this can all be explained by this thing that Crowder is going through that people, obviously, reporters know about. She should let us know, because I'm concerned now about Crowder. Mm-hmm. I am concerned. People don't know how hard it was for me to deal with the fact that maybe I put him in the hospital with his heart tremors. And now I have to sit here and wondering why he's spiraling?
With non-Christian?
It's really easy for people to think that, like, oh, Sam's just a smug guy who just, looking like this and being smug and trying to be sarcastic and all, smarmy with Steven Crowder. Yeah, well, I got news for you. I'm a person, all right? I have feelings. When it's not funny.
Sorry.
Matt.
Sorry.
And the idea that I almost put Steven Crowder in the hospital just for showing up and saying, well, I'll be willing to debate you on any topic, that took a while for me to get over. And now to hear that the guy's spiraling, maybe I can help. Maybe I'm too self-aggrandizing to say, like, maybe I could help. The guy monitors the show. Mm-hmm. Maybe there are words I could say that make him feel like to be more accepting of himself.
Yeah.
So,
also, I mean, as you know, your work with the libertarian debates might help him in this labor dispute he's got.
And I can help him with understand. I mean, look, one of the things that we do on the show, and I think as smug and smarmy as I am, we have had people called in who are actually used to be fans of Crowder, who over time came to understand that there is a better set of ideas that explain both why things are happening the way they happen within our system and how to improve the lot of more people's lives. And if it can happen with a Crowder fan, maybe it can happen for Crowder. Yep. And so ultimately what I'm saying is, Steven, I'm here for you. If we need Candace to announce this stuff so that you can sort of like come out of your shell or be revealed or, open the door to a new life, we're here and we're here to help. Yep. That's all I'm saying. Okay? Period. I don't want people to blow this up into something. That's all we're saying.
It's funny, when he was on Tim Pool, he's like, I understand why Candace is mad. I might be mad too, but this is just what I have to do. It's a little bit weak, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. It doesn't. Guys packing heat, man. You gotta. That
is that
heat,
fighting like hell?
It doesn't seem like it.